and he did so perfectly, leaving no room for doubt. I gave him the necklace without taking reward from him. I said, O Allah, I have given it up for you. So compensate me with what is better. That he then went to the ocean and began a journey in a small boat. Only a brief period of time passed before a storm came with heavy winds crashing into the boat. The boat smashed into pieces, and the man was forced to cling to a piece of wood. The violent winds propelled him to the left and to the right. Finally, he was washed ashore onto an island. He found there a mosque filled with people who were praying, so he joined them. He found papers with parts of the Quran written on them, and he began to recite from them. The people of the island asked him, Do you read the Quran? He answered in the affirmative. They said, Teach our children the Quran. So he began to teach them, and he took a salary for his services. One day they saw him writing, and they asked, Will you teach our children to write? Again he answered in the affirmative, and began teaching them for a salary. A short time later they said to him, There is an orphan girl with us whose father was a good man. Will you marry her? He agreed to the marriage, and later related, I married her, and when I saw her on the wedding night, I found that she was wearing that exact same necklace. I asked her to tell me the story of the necklace. She said that her father lost it in Mecca, and a man found it and returned it to him. She said that her father would always supplicate while prostrating for her daughter to become blessed with a husband similar to that honest man. I then informed her that I was that man. He abandoned something for the sake of Allah, so Allah compensated him with something that was better. Verily Allah is good and pure, and He does not accept other than what is good and pure. When you ask Allah. Allah's kindness is very near to us. He hears all and answers our supplications. It is we who are full of shortcomings, and so we badly need to be persistent in our supplications. Boredom or hopelessness should never cause us to stop invoking Allah, nor should one of us say, I prayed, yet I have not been answered. Instead, we should press our heads humbly on the ground and beg for help from Allah. The best way to do this is to ask Him by His perfect names and attributes, but until we are answered, we must be persistent in asking Him. Invoke your Lord with humility and in secret. A writer narrated the story. A Muslim went to a certain country as a refugee, and he implored the authorities there to grant him citizenship. All doors were shut before him, despite his many efforts at importuning others. All of his contacts failed. One day he met a righteous scholar, and he gave him an account of his predicament. The scholar said to him, Supplicate to your Lord, for He is the one who makes things easy. The meaning of this advice is found in the Hadith. If you ask, then ask Allah, and if you seek help from Allah. And know that if the nation were to gather together in order to give you some benefit, they would not bring you any benefit except with what Allah has written for you. The refugee later related, For Allah, I stopped going to people for help or for intercession, and instead I began praying to Allah in the last third of the night, just as the scholar had told me to do. Just before the break of dawn, I would call to Allah and invoke Him for relief. Only a few days passed, after which I submitted an application for citizenship without using any person or of position to intercede for me. A few days passed, and then suddenly, to my astonishment, I was called to pick up my citizenship request papers. They were stamped with approved. Allah is very gracious and kind to His slaves. Precious moments. Gave the account of a governor in Baghdad who usurped the wealth of an old lady in his province. He took away all of her rights and confiscated her property. She went to him, wept before him, and complained of his oppression and wrongdoing. He was neither grateful nor ashamed of what he had got done. In a fit of anger, she said, "I will pray against you." He laughed at her in mockery and said, "Then you should pray in the last third of the night." His arrogance had made him say this to her. She went away, and in accordance with the governor's mock advice, she was steadfast in praying during the last third of the night. It was only a matter of days before he was violently removed from office. As a reward for his tyranny, his properties were seized, and he was publicly whipped. After the whipping, the old lady passed by him and said, "You did well. You advised me to pray in the last third of the night, and I found the results to be most favorable." The last third of the night is a very precious time in our lives. Why? During this time, Allah the Exalted says, "Is there someone who is asking, and I will give to him? Is there someone who is seeking forgiveness, and I will forgive him? Is there someone who is supplicating, and I will answer him?" From childhood until now, I can recall a number of occasions in which it was clear that help comes only from Allah approximately. "10 years ago, I was on a flight from Abha to Riyadh. Shortly after takeoff, an announcement was made that the plane was returning to Abha due to a mechanical problem. They then claimed to have fixed the problem, and we took off for a second time. Upon approaching the runway in Riyadh, the landing wheels would not open. We circled the city of Riyadh for a whole hour. The pilot made 10 attempts to land, but on each occasion the landing gear did not respond. Many people in the plane panicked, and tears were flowing profusely as we waited in the sky for death. At that moment we saw how insignificant and fleeting this life is, and our hearts became attached to the hereafter. We began to repeat, "There is none worthy of worship except Allah alone, and He has no partners. The kingdom belongs to Him, all praise is due to Him, and He is upon all things capable." An old man stood and exhorted the people to turn to Allah, to supplicate to Him, to seek forgiveness, and to make repentance. And Allah said about people that, "And when they embark on a ship, they invoke Allah, making their faith pure for Him only." We invoke the one who answers the prayer of the one who is in distress. On the 11th attempt, we descended safely, and when we landed, it was as if we were returning from our graves. Tears dried, smiles appeared, and our peace of mind returned. How merciful and kind is Allah! An Arab poet said, "How often do we ask Allah when we become afflicted? But when our troubles leave us, we forget Him. When in the ocean, we invoke Him to save our ship. When we return safely to land, we disobey him. We fly in the sky in safety and comfort. And we don't fall because our protector is Allah.